Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and it's time for my top 10 comic books of 2021. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups. This is my top 10 comic books of 2021. Lots of good comic books out this year. Lots of not good comic books out this year. But we're going to be focusing on what I consider the best of the best. Guaranteed must-reads of the year, at least for me. I'll be going down from 10 to 1. And let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. At number 10, we've got Geiger from Image Comics, written by Geoff Johns with artwork by Gary Frank and coloring by Brad Anderson. Geiger was one of the best superhero comic books I read all year long. I loved it. It was 6 issues and 1 special, collected in a trade paperback right now. It was fantastic. So you got amazing, intricate, and detailed artwork from Gary Frank, beautiful, glowing, phosphorescent coloring from Brad Anderson, and really appropriate atmospheric coloring when it's necessary. And you got a great story by Geoff Johns. Geiger is a superhero. He's powered with like radioactive powers. He's got these like control rods he has to stick in his back, otherwise he becomes the glowing man. It would make an excellent action figure. Come on, McFarlane Toys. We want to see a Geiger action figure. This was a book that started off kind of personal and a little tragic, and it rolled through in this post-apocalyptic world, building it out into something even more expansive and grandiose. When it got to the end of the series, turned out this is just the beginning of a whole new comic book world that has a present, a future, and a past. Really great, well thought out characters. This book was amazing. If you like superhero books that don't get held back by, say, Marvel or DC editorial, definitely check this one out. At number 9, we've got By the Horns from Scout Comics, written by Marc-Essan Nassau, illustrated by Jason Moore, and colored by Andre Tabakaru. By the Horns is the fantasy-based comic book world that I never knew I wanted, but always needed. This is such an absolutely phenomenal, slept-on series throughout the entire year. This has been consistent, it has been amazing, and it's been telling a nice long-form story. By the Horns is about this woman whose lover was murdered, stampeded to death by unicorns. So now she's in this fantasy world, and she's a monster hunter, but she has a specialty in hunting unicorns, right? So it's an interesting inversion of what you typically see. Usually unicorns are these like majestic, mythical beings, say like in Ridley Scott's Legend or something like that. And this book does play with those kind of ideas, but its setup is completely different. They are portrayed as the villainous force at first, but when our hero decides that maybe there's something bigger, more ultimate evil to have to defeat, then the story starts taking interesting turns. All of the characters are incredibly well developed. The concept and the design is fan-frickin-tastic. The way that Jason does all these character designs, it works. And the artwork, the coloring on it, it pops so frickin' well. You have amazing double-page composition. You have a really intricate story being told with well-developed characters that continue to evolve issue to issue. It has never disappointed me. I've talked about it a lot when I did the top 10 with Jim Mint. I talk about it a lot on my weekly comic book review, and you know I'm going to be talking about it here. By the Horns, one of the best comics of 2021, number 9 on the list. At number 8, Swamp Thing from DC Comics, written by Ram V with artwork from Mike Perkins, coloring by Mike Spicer, and lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Yo, this Swamp Thing book is legit. We had 10 issues come out this year. Absolutely fantastic. Ram V, Mike Perkins, Mike Spicer, and Aditya Bidikar have created an entirely new avatar of the Green, a new iteration of Swamp Thing. It's now this dude named Levi. He's from India. He's got this family background. The way the story was told, his journey as becoming the Swamp Thing, and the journey or the explanation, the revelation of what's gone on in the past, his family drama, what's going on with his corporation, all of it just works so freaking well. This is a book that works so magnificently that there was a shoehorned in Suicide Squad crossover / tie-in when the Suicide Squad movie came out, right? And it still worked with the book narratively and thematically. That blew my mind. Mike Perkins' artwork is gritty, textured, organic, something that you absolutely need for a Swamp Thing book to soar. Add in those beautiful colors by Mike Spicer and amazing lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Letterer of 2021. Best letter again for me. I mean, seriously, great stuff. This is a fantastic book. It's a great new character, a world being built up and explored that has a legacy, or should I say, rooted in what's come before in Swamp Thing lore and mythos, but building on that and creating its own unique voice. Ram B is an amazing writer. He's my favorite writer of the year so far, and honestly, you're going to see his name on this list again, but if you missed out on the Swamp Thing, the first trade paperback is out. It's got 6 more issues to come in 2022, so it may even make a repeat appearance on the top 10. They're killing it. At number 7, Stray Dogs from Image Comics, written by Tony Fleece with artwork from Trish Forstner. Stray Dogs is the inevitable result when you ask the question, what happens if we take a psychological thriller, say something like Silence of the Lambs, or maybe even a little bit of Seven, and mix it with a Don Bluth animated production? All Dogs Go to Heaven meets Exorcist 3, right? Because we all know Exorcist 3 is the greatest psychological thriller of the 90s. Can I get a station? Anyway, that's a bit. If you're not familiar with that, don't worry about it. Anyway, the whole point of this being to talk about Stray Dogs. Stray Dogs is amazing. It is a story about a serial killer who goes out and he's killing these women, right? So it hits all those, not tropes is the wrong word, but it hits all of those typical conventions that you would get out of something like this, right? But all of these people have pets. He meets these women on the dog park, right? Every one of their pets, once he kills the woman, he takes their pet along with him, and then there's a whole bunch of them at his house, obviously. Well, dogs don't really remember too much, but what if one of them maybe remembered their previous owner, their previous family, and was like, this dude is not a good dude. So it's that psychological serial killer thriller type thing, but from the perspective of the victim's animals. And the artwork, yes, we're talking about artists that were involved in My Little Pony. So the artwork is cartoony. The artwork is 100% straight Don Bluth, Disney, that kind of stuff. All Dogs Go to Heaven, Oliver and Company, right? Think about animated dogs and cats and all that kind of stuff. And that's exactly how the story is rendered artistically. But story-wise, it's deep, it's dark, it's tragic, it's magnificent. It was great. And they had some of the best covers of the year because they would do these homage covers to horror movies. That was a brilliant, genius idea. My favorite of which being issue number 4, the Lamberto Bava Demons homage. Come on. Stray Dogs is amazing. Do not be turned off from the artwork. It is not a kiddie book. It is gritty. It is deep. It is tragic. And it is so much fun and expertly done. At number 6, Red Room from Fantagraphics, written, illustrated, everything by Ed Piskor. We all know Ed Piskor from the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. I know him, of course, also from X-Men Grand Design. Fan-frickin-tastic artist, a great talent and creator in the comic book industry, whether it's on the page or on top of the page talking about it on video, right? Ed Piskor, I think, is a true scholar of this industry, along with Jim Rugg and Tom Scioli, but we're talking about Ed's work on Red Room. This is a really solid, gnarly, gritty, gross, and out there horror comic. It's about murder and profit, hold on, I messed that up. Murder on the dark web for fun and profit. That's the name of the game in the Red Room universe. So on the dark web, you got people live streaming murder films, snuff films, things like that. So Ed Piskor has taken the idea of things we grew up with, like, say, Faces of Death, Cannibal Holocaust. Back in those VHS days, in the banned VHS days, we thought that these were like real-life murders and things like that. But snuff films do exist. And then you add in the idea of today's technology, encryption, the dark web, cryptocurrency. He takes all these ideas, he throws it in together. Not only is he telling a really gnarly, vicious, gross type story with the artwork, it's all out there. If you do not like graphic horror, you're not going to like this book. It's not going to be for you. I did a whole review on the graphic novel. All 4 issues are self-contained, telling one over-enriching story. fantastic. But not only is the artwork gnarly, I did a video you should check out just a couple weeks ago. But not only is the artwork just super gnarly and detailed and intricate and highly technical in skill, the story's pretty solid. Like, each issue is a one-and-done story, self-contained. An overall narrative is forming. He's not necessarily telling it all in order, but you can put the pieces together. This book is absolutely brilliant to me. It's fan-frickin-tastic. I absorb it. It was also, to me, the best free comic book day issue of the year. Red Room. It's not going to be for everybody, but if you're in that target audience like I am, it's definitely for you. At number 5, Nice House on the Lake from DC Comics, written by James Tynion with artwork by Alvaro Martinez Bueno and coloring by Jordie Bellaire. So writer James Tynion has been making waves in the last several years from his work on titles like Batman, and in particular Something is Killing the Children, and of course Department of Truth as well. However, I will say this, I think the best thing I've ever read from James Tynion so far, 6 issues in, has been Nice House on the Lake. This book is freaking phenomenal, right? So it's about a group of friends, they're kind of loosely connected, all tied around relationships with this one dude, right, named Walter, right? Every time he meets somebody, he's got this question, how do you think the end of the world's gonna happen, right? And at first it seems like it's all fun and games. Turns out that the end of the world does actually happen, and then he has saved like these 12 friends of his, and now they are the only sole survivors in the apocalypse, living in the nice house by the lake. They showed up for a vacation. Turns out, yo, the world ended, y'all are here, but there's something mysterious about Walter. There's even something about that story that I just told you. There's a lot of mystery, there's a lot of intrigue, and it's something that gets well developed throughout these first 6 issues, which are the first half of the series. It will continue in March of next year. I cannot wait. Like I said, this is James Tynion's best work because it's crafting a really interesting, compelling mystery, but it's doing so with relatable and knowledgeable characters. And knowledgeable meaning he is knowledgeable about these characters. The book itself uses different techniques through the script, through the writing, through the artwork, where they're giving us transcripts, they're giving us camera footage, they're doing all these different interesting things that other comic books do, but not to the effect that this book does. The artwork by Alvaro Martinez Bueno, it's freaking fantastic. It's beautiful. Great composition, double-page spreads, y'all. Major props to Deladare's work over at Something is Killing the Children. But this right here, it's clean, it's moody, it's atmospheric, it is beautifully rendered. And then the coloring by Jordie Bellaire. Y'all, Jordie Bellaire is one of the best colorists out there. We're always talking about people like Tamara Bonvillain. We're talking about Dave Stewart, Chris O'Halloran. But Jordie Bellaire, do not sleep on her. She is absolutely amazing. And just look at a book she did like, say, Nowhere Men and Moon Knight, and then look at her work here and notice how she shifts and changes that style and that palette for the appropriate tone of the book that she's working on. This book has been absolutely freaking phenomenal. It's amazing. It's brilliant. That's why it's on this list. At number 4, we're going Homesick Pilots from Image Comics, written by Dan Waters with artwork by Casper Wingard and lettering by Aditya Bidikar. Homesick Pilots just may be one of the most difficult books to describe. I would say that the words necessary to give you an idea of what the story is about aren't too difficult, but that doesn't do service to this book. Dan Waters is absolutely amazing. In fact, he did a book this year called Picture of Everything Else. Only 3 of 5 issues have come out so far, so I didn't think that it qualified enough for Best of the Year. But y'all, I'm telling you, that book just 3 issues in was a contender for the pick of the year. I just wish we could have got the conclusion of that story. But Dan Waters is an amazing writer. He's very literary in the way that he approaches his comic book dialogue, his narration, the pace and the flow. And then he's working with Casper Wingard. They work together on books like Limbo. It is absolutely brilliant. So it's kind of like a punk rock horror kaiju type book, right? So there's this punk rock band. This book is set, I think, in the 90s. It's a punk rock band. They're like, what can we do to really make ourselves known? What if we did a show at a haunted house? So they go to check out this haunted house, and it's really legitimately haunted, and one of the members of the band kind of gets taken by this house, and now she can pilot this house. This house literally gets up and stands up in like humanoid kaiju form. And then now you've got the government trying to weaponize this technology. So we're talking about weaponized ghost, tech, and mech in a kaiju Gundam type way. What? You see what I'm saying? The words to use to describe the book's plot and story and vibe and feel make sense. But when you put it all together, you're like, what? You got to experience this comic book to understand what I'm talking about. It has a lot of commentary on punk rock music scenes. It's got a lot of commentary just about pop culture. It's got a lot of commentary about ghosts and youth culture. This book is freaking amazing. It always is just taking me by surprise. It takes twists and turns that I don't see coming. This book is clever, and it's exceptionally beautifully rendered by Caspar Wingard. The color palette is top-notch. The line work is simple, clean, and efficient, and it absolutely works. Aditya Bidikar, of course, best letterer of 2021, best letterer again, in my opinion. Homesick Pilots is great. We have, like, what, 10 issues of this out right now, 2 trade paperbacks, where the second one's on its way. Y'all got to check out this book. If you haven't read it, you're missing one of the best of the year. At number 3, Ice Cream Man from Image Comics, written by W. Maxwell Prince with artwork from Martin Morazzo and coloring by Chris O'Halloran. We also got some great lettering from good old Neon. Ice Cream Man has been on pretty much every single one of these top 10 of the year lists that I've done. Every one of these best of the year lists, I challenge you to go back. Maybe it doesn't happen in the first year because Ice Cream Man didn't happen yet, but holy freaking cow, Ice Cream Man is just one of the best books of my lifetime. This book is amazing. So it is an anthology, surreal, supernatural, kind of horror, twisted comic book series. Just beautiful. Beautifully done. A weird book, a surreal book, but a very deep and resonating book as well. Each issue of Ice Cream Man is self-contained. You could just pick up any issue, read it, and understand the vibe and flow of the series, but get a completely new, twisted, original tale that's done in a very innovative and provocative type way. We got 4 issues of Ice Cream Man this year. We got the telethon issue, which was absolutely amazing. We got the talk show issue. We got the 25th issue with the airplane going down, and we got the family tree issue. Each book in Ice Cream Man is telling a simple story in a very surreal and weird way with amazing, intricate artwork, with very deceptively simple line work that contains a lot of emotive expression, a lot of detail, and as far as the coloring goes, a lot of atmosphere, tone, and mood. That's what we're getting in Ice Cream Man, and each story is about the human experience. It's about tragedy, but it's also about hope and joy. It's about despair. It's about the depressing nature of reality, the way that life can grind you down. But it's also about finding that light at the end of the tunnel. Some stories don't end very well. In fact, most of them don't. Some stories end up very hopeful and whatnot. And there is an overall narrative that's starting to come into view. The mystery of this Ice Cream Man. This Ice Cream Man shows up, he gives you some ice cream, all of a sudden crazy weird shit happens, right? That was the premise. Now it's like the Ice Cream Man doesn't even really necessarily have to be a part of a lot of these books. We got a lot of world building with issue number 25, but out of all of the individual, unique, innovative stories, this may have been one of the best years for Ice Cream Man. Not only is it one of the best books and has been for the last several years, it just keeps getting better. Ice Cream Man, top 3. At number 2, The Me You Love in the Dark from Image Comics. Written by Scotty Young with artwork by Jorge Corona and coloring by Jean-Francois Bolo. Yeah, this was a 5-issue series that absolutely blew me away. Came out of nowhere, too. I was expecting the new Corona and Young book to be good because I loved Middle West, but I was not expecting this. This was a really very tightly executed, expertly rendered 5-issue series that just blew me away. It's about an artist. She's had one successful gallery. She is the talk of the town now, but now she's going through a little bit of creative block. She just can't quite get to the next plateau of making and creating her artwork, right? So she decides to get some inspiration. She seeks out a haunted house. Hey, maybe I'll rent this haunted house out and check it out. Turns out the house is actually haunted by some kind of dark, twisted, ghostly, demonic entity or something, right? Okay, seems like the story's going to be relatively simple from that point forward. No, she winds up developing a relationship with this ghost, with this entity. And I don't just mean like a friendly Casper the Ghost type thing. I'm talking about somebody gonna knock on the boots. That's what I'm talking about, right? But then it gets really dark and takes some really gnarly, twisted turns. And it ended expertly. It ended with the ending that it deserved, the ending that almost was kind of predictable, but at the same time where it's predictability and reliability that works and also surprises you. This book was amazing. Scotty Young has really been upping the level of his writing, right? Like 100%. One of the best books at Marvel this year, and I know I'm going to get this in the comments. No, there's not a Marvel book on this list. Moon Knight almost made it, honorable mention, and so did Strange Academy. Scotty Young is doing some really great work over there. He is growing as a writer, and Jorge Corona's artwork here is the most clean, precise, and expertly composed composition I have ever seen from this cat. The coloring is great. We've seen the same colorist on Middle West, but notice the differences. Notice the differences in the line work and the texture. Notice the difference in that coloring and the shades and the palette. This book was done to the right way. It is an excellent story. It is very compelling with its character work, but at the same time, it's telling a rather important story about a destructive and codependent relationship. Y'all, this book was amazing. And at number 1, The Many Deaths of Lila Starr from Boom Studios, written by Ram V with artwork by Felipe Andrade. Y'all, come on. Like, seriously, I've been talking this book up since like March or whatever when it dropped. This book was absolutely freaking brilliant, right? And once again, best book of the year as far as Rockin Robbie's concerned goes to a Ram V book. Last year it was Blue and Green. This year it's The Many Deaths of Lila Starr. So Lila Starr, let's talk about this. What's the concept of this book? This is about the god of death being fired from her job. And now she has to live as a mortal, right? So Death gets fired because some human has been born on Earth that's going to create immortality to all of humanity, right? So God of Death is fired. She now has to live as a human. So she makes it her mission to find this prophetic child and kill them before they have the chance to create immortality, right? And in doing so, she herself keeps dying. So the goddess of death winds up becoming human and dying multiple times. Through some other kind of, relations with gods or whatever, she keeps getting brought back, and she keeps going back after this dude who creates immortality at different points in his life. Okay? And then it reaches a climax at the end of its 5th issue run. Freaking fantastic. This graphic novel is about to be coming out in a couple weeks, couple months, something like that. I think it comes out in a few months. But it's totally worth it. Best book of the year for me. It is a story that is more whimsical in nature than I typically associate with Ram V. We're talking about These Savage Shores, Paradiso. We're talking about Blue and Green. We're talking about Graffiti's Wall. We're talking about a writer who doesn't get pegged down to a style. Like, you can read a book and tell that that is Ram V's work, but you can't predict what that work is going to be on the next project. For instance, Radio Apocalypse, 1 issue in so far. Who would have ever thought that that was what he was doing? Ram V is incredibly innovative as a creator. He's always thinking about how to affect pacing, how to affect tone and mood. It is absolutely brilliant. He also gets to work with some of the best artists out there. Andrade's artwork on this and the coloring by, oh my goodness, I cannot remember the colorist's name, but holy freaking cow. The color palette is amazing. The lettering is amazing. The artwork, though, is a different, more unique style than what a lot of people are going to be used to. Say with like a house style at DC or Marvel. That's not what you're going to get. But you're getting it that is totally, you're getting artwork that's totally appropriate to the atmosphere and resonance of the story being told. This book blows me away. So first of all, you can't peg down Ram V's style. This one is a little bit more humorous, a little bit more whimsical. There is an entire issue that is told narratively through the perspective of a cigarette. A cigarette butt, like dying out. Like, what the hell? the book has a really interesting premise, but what it has become was that the book kind of became an exploration on grief, on death, on loss, obviously, right? But by the end of it, it's more than that. It's actually a story not about death, but through exploring death, becomes a story about life. Through exploring despair and grief, it becomes a book about hope and optimism. Like, it's a story, it's a truly humanist tale about life. And it's absolutely freaking brilliant. It's beautifully poetic. It's lyrically satisfactory. That doesn't make sense. Satisfactory is not the word you want to use. It's lyrically resonant. This is like poetry on the comic book page. It is one of the best books of the year. Robbie is the writer of the year. 100% yet again. I love this cat. I love his work. You add in Felipe and the rest of the artists, the rest of the creative team. Holy cow, this is not just one of the best books of this year. It's one of the best books of the last 20 years. 100%. A great self-contained story, beginning, middle, and end. 5 issues that did a lot in those 5 issues. Each issue had its own meaning, its own resonancy. And I know, man, resonating books, that's what I'm always talking about. But those are the books that stick with me. Robbie's The Many Deaths of Lila Starr, an exploration of death and grief that leads to a revelation about life, hope, and joy. Holy freaking cow. So those are my top 10 comic books of this year. Like I said, lots of honorable mentions we could fit in there. What are yours? What are your favorite comic books of 2021? Let me know in the comments down below. I really want to keep this conversation going. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support this channel. We really do appreciate all the support we get just by liking and sharing and watching these videos. Anyway, I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Another year done, another year on the way. Let's make it bigger, brighter, and better than ever. Y'all, station. And I have a lot of questions. What does station mean? I still get that question. Station means, very simply, be excellent to each other.